Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media MegaCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you. Let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. Now, if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also, keep in mind that if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you. So throughout today's MegaCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all of your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentation. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up on our tour, there are going to be lots of cool aha moments in the MegaCast today, and if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's MegaCast will automatically get added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the Handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes we will be giving away throughout the MegaCast today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. You do need to be in attendance here live at the webinar in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the MegaCast today. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, hey, if you're not sure what those are, no problem. You can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click into the Handouts section, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember here today is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's MegaCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all the questions asked after the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about winning, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the MegaCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content right away after we wrap, you want to jump right in, make sure that you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and to grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you're going to find a link to do that right there in that Handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected after we wrap today. Now, both you and your coworker, your friend, could win a prize, and we actually hold those drawings every month. So be sure you refer somebody awesome before you head out today. It could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your Handouts tab and fill out the application. Then the Actual Tech crew will match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys or test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you will learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, how to prevent and recover. The site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. So go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books are going to work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and they are completely free, super easy. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the Handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in, so let's get rolling. All right, folks, it is time to jump into the good stuff here, because today we are talking about maximizing your data management, movement, and optimization. And here's one of the reasons that this MegaCast is really exciting today. I mean, every MegaCast is exciting, but I'm extra pumped for this one because you avid ATM fans will remember that on Tuesday, we actually had a conversation with experts from both Rubrik and Pure Storage, and we talked about some of the best practices for data storage. So if you missed that, go check that out on demand. It's an awesome MegaCast, really worth going back through and listening. But today, we get to talk about maximizing and optimizing data and data management. So basically, I see this as like a layer cake of awesomeness, a 1-2 punch with all the best things that we need to know to get the most out of our data. So again, today we will be hearing from top experts from Rubrik and Pure Storage, and these teams are leading the industry, setting new standards for data management and storage. And we're going to learn a little bit from them, have some interactive conversations, get to know the experts, get to know the solutions. It's just going to be a really exciting day. How cool is that? I can't wait to jump in. So I think it's time that we get started. Now, if you missed it at the top, my name again is Jess Steinbach. I'll be your moderator here today, and we'll be joined in just a moment with my fellow moderator, Scott Becker, as well as Keith Ward, who's here on live chat with us today. Now, I know a few of you heard me talk about prizes in our intro here today, and your ears just pricked right up. So let's come back around to prizes. Today on the MegaCast, you could win one of 3 Samsung S23 phones, and guys, you do get to choose your color, so that's pretty exciting. You could also win a $300 Amazon gift card. We'll be giving those away every 30 minutes, so stay tuned for that. And if you have questions about those T's and C's, remember you can find the link in your Handouts tab. So click on over there, and the full T's and C's are waiting for you. Well, with that, that was a quick and easy intro, because now we're going to get into our session. And to kick things off today, we get to chat with the one and only Scott Becker, my friend and fellow moderator here at Actual Tech Media, who is also just kind of an expert on all things and always has something interesting to tell us about. Scott, what are you here to talk about today?
Hey, Jess. I am here to talk about big data.
Ooh, okay. I'm excited, Scott. Take it away.
Okay. So, yeah, thanks, Jess. And before we talk about solutions for maximizing data through data management, movement, and optimization, I just wanted to step back and take sort of the wide lens view of where we are with data in 2023. So I've called this presentation Big Data. I know it's getting dated as a buzzword, but I like it. It's apt for our situation, and it gave me an excuse to stream music by Big Data, the band, while I created this deck. I wish I had the rights to play them in the background behind my talk here, but I don't. So I'm going to share a couple of numbers that describe the scope of the issues that we're all facing with data. First up is the estimated amount of data being generated in the world in 2023. And I find this number insane. It's 120 zettabytes. And I'll just let that sink in for a second. That's zeta with a Z. So let's back up and dig into what that means. So, I mean, I've seen the word zettabytes before, but it doesn't have a lot of context for me. The last data amount that really resonates for me in a day-to-day sense is gigabytes. So let's see how we get to zettabytes from there. Over on the right side of the slide, you can see the progression after gigabytes. So we go to terabytes, and then petabytes, then exabytes, and only then do we get to zettabytes. And if you're wondering, the next step is yottabytes. But here's a fun fact, which you've all probably noticed on this slide already, and that's it. We're in something called the zettabyte era. This is something that I'd forgotten that I'd heard, but we've been in this period of human and computer science history since the 2010s. And there's 2 ways to measure it, by network traffic or by data creation. So By IP traffic, we've been in the zettabyte era since 2016. By data, we've been in it since 2012. So I find that crazy. But so let's get back to the number of 120 zettabytes. On this chart, you can see the progression. And by this measure, we were at about 2 zettabytes worldwide in 2010, which I'm thinking would have put us in the zettabyte era, a year or two earlier than some of the official stats. But anyway, so we're approaching 60 times that 2010 figure in 2023. So how do we get there? Growth each year has been averaging about 20 to 25%, with occasional spikes. Like, for example, if you can see on this type here between 2020 and 2021, between 2019 and 2020, there's an increase of 57%. On this chart, that just means that the 2020 line is much bigger. And of course, that's when everybody went home and started interacting all day long on Zoom and other video platforms. And you can see there was also a big jump in the 2010 to 2011 timeframe. And that's about when video was really starting to explode on the internet too. So speaking of video, you might have noticed that through line there. Let's get into some of the nuances around all of this data. The first point there is that video makes up over half of all global data traffic currently. It's nearly 54% of traffic. So, from a practical standpoint, that means if you're storing video that you don't need on your corporate networks, it's costing you. So that's one thing to consider. Now, a more regular corporate concern is email, and that's something that IT is typically responsible for facilitating and backing up. And these figures here are from April 2022, but at that time there were 231 million emails sent per minute, and each day that came to 333 billion. So, that's probably mostly spam, but for reference, as a proportion of overall internet data traffic, messaging, which is the superset that includes email, is about 5%. So it's a big chunk, about a tenth of video. One other nuance is the proliferation of data centers. So the United States has the most of any country by a lot. And one recent effort to catalog them called out 2,700 data centers in the U.S. Now, those are difficult to count, depending on how you group them. Like, even the huge companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google group them differently into regions or zones. But you get the idea. Efforts to count them, put them at around there. So all this data is bringing massive numbers of data centers into the world. So all this high-level stuff is great, but what does this all mean to me? I'm sure you're wondering. Well, let's take a look at that. So this first point is kind of a relief. Only a small percentage of this newly created data is actually kept. So according to Statista, just 2% of the data produced and consumed in 2020 was actually saved and retained into 2021. So you think about that, it's like, okay, so that huge scale, we can crunch that way, way, way down, when we look at what's actually stored. But at the same time, 2% of a huge number is still a huge number, and that smaller huge number is growing fast. So in 2020, the installed base of storage capacity reached 6.7 zettabytes. So again, we're creating 120 zettabytes per year, currently, but all the storage in the world adds up to 6.7 zettabytes. So you can see how little of it, actually gets retained. And that installed base of storage capacity is forecast to keep growing at roughly the same rate as the overall growth of generated data. So we talked about a 20 to 25% growth that top line number is going at. For the installed base of storage capacity, we're looking at a compound annual growth rate around 19%, in the 2020 to 2025 forecast period. Now, finally, figures vary for this, but the amount of data that the average enterprise stores is about 10 petabytes of data. That's, when you think about that graph that we looked at earlier, that's one tick above terabyte. And this is a huge number to manage and to move and to optimize, meaning there are really large costs and time considerations involved in that management, which is what we'll be hearing about in the rest of the sessions today. So Jess, I'm looking forward to hearing about some solutions, for people for getting your arms around all of this data.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping into that. But before we do, Scott, important question for you. Okay, Terra,
Okay.
Teta, Exa, Zeta. When is the yottabyte era starting?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so I was wondering that too, and some of what I've seen is that we're expected to get into that era around 2030. So we're not too far away from being in the yottabyte era. And don't ask me what's after yottabyte because I forgot to look that up.
We're going to have to start inventing new numbers. It's so funny, these things that seem so far in the future, and then you blink, and there they are. There we are in the yottabyte era.
Absolutely.
Well, Scott, thank you so much. This has been a great way to kick off our MegaCast. Lots of great info. You got some high fives from the audience out there. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to move things right along to a question for all of you. It's your turn to start answering some questions out there. Let's see how alive, awake, and alert you are this morning. Stretch out your fingers, run on over to your laptop, and practice clicking on polls. We're going to ask you to click on a few polls today, so this is your round one. Let us know what is the time frame that you have in mind for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company. Today, obviously, talking about data management, movement, and optimization. So what do you have in mind in terms of timelines for making some of those changes? So click on the poll. Let us know what you have in mind. And I want to say, yeah, Jonas is wondering what's after yottabytes. Okay, we're going to have to do a little digging, Jonas. We'll get back to you. And I saw a couple of Dan said he really enjoyed all the facts. Marco says thanks for the presentation. Chibatabyte is Matt's response. Somebody's got to know this. Let us know. And Scott and I will look it up and get back to you all on chat. All right, well, you guys are all out there Googling various byte eras. I'm going to move things along in our presentation because it is time to kick things off. I cannot wait to get into this presentation. I'm so excited to introduce you all to our very first expert presenter today. Now, as you can see, we are in for a great start. Today, we will be chatting with Shane Allen, Platform Solution Architect at Rubrik. Shane, thank you so much for being here with us today to kick off this MegaCast, this awesome conversation that we're in store for. I can't wait to hear what's up at Rubrik. So I'm going to hand things right over to you. Take it away, Shane.
So hi, my name is Shane Allen, and today I'll be talking about why backup is not equal to cyber recovery. So what do we mean? Right? Everybody has backup. However, they've been struggling to recover. Everybody's been struggling to recover from a cyber event, specifically those type of destructive events that target the data and the backup data. I don't need to tell you that businesses are under attack. You hear about it every day, almost daily. Despite the multiple layers of protection businesses employ, it just takes a simple mistake by anyone within your organization, and the bad guys have access to your data. But what happens if they get your data, but they also get your backup copies as well? You're left with not many options at that point. You're paying a ransom. Over 30% of companies last year got hit with ransomware, and of those, over 70% of them had their backup data targeted. But I first want to level set on a couple things. First, attackers get in, they establish persistence, and they traverse the network, they move vertically. And what they're looking for is data, sensitive data they can do harm, data they can use to do double extortion. They start copying that data out quietly. People don't know they're there. Once they find that data, they copy the data out, they start looking for the backup solutions. They generally go for legacy backup solutions using open protocols and such, backup repositories, systems. They try to delete those backups. Can they delete snapshots? Can they go back to the storage networks and start deleting snapshots so you have nothing to recover from? Once they do that, they choose a nice opportunity moment to actually go in and encrypt and leave the ransomware. Most of the time from our customer base, we see this happening over long weekends and holiday periods is when they encrypt and leave a ransom. So what do? You assume breach, right? If the attacker gets in, how do we know, how do we protect all the backup data? If our endpoint protection fails, what's the blast radius? So when they did get in, how much did they affect? If the data is exfiltrated, what is in that data? Is it PII data? Where's it at? Right? How do we identify a clean recovery point? This is specifically important. Like now that they've got in, now you know what the blast radius is. How do you recover a system that's not going to reinfect? And can you automate recovery? And can you test it? Because you want to be able to answer the time, how long does it take? So I just want to kind of level set on the anatomy of ransomware. We'll kind of refer to this later in the slides. And the key principles of data protection. The reason I put this up is you hear these principles a lot. Air gap, immutability, retention lock, NTP protection. What does that mean? Typically air gap in legacy solutions, most legacy backup solutions didn't have an air gap. Their backups are online. All you need is the right credentials, and you can navigate or transverse down to the backup data on your network. You have physically disconnected backup data, most likely tape. The tape at the scale at which big data is in, tape is no longer something that people continually rely on to recover the data and the business in a timely fashion. But you have logical air gaps, meaning the backups are there in the system, but they're not accessible by anybody within the system. They're not using standard protocols. They're not within a UI or a CLI. They can't see them. So they're inaccessible to the operator, but they're online, available for quick recovery if needed. And immutability. Immutability is something that, it's a new buzzword. It's been coming out, it's more popular the last few years because of cyber recovery. But what does that mean? Backups can be edited or not edited or encrypted. So immutability means once the data lands on a file system, it can't be modified. It can't be edited. It can't be changed. And then how do you prevent an authorized user from reducing frequency or reducing retention to expire backups early? Meaning, how do you protect the backups from somebody maybe getting authorized credentials and going in and reducing your backup frequency to where you have no backups to recover from? That's retention lock. And then how do you ensure your system can't be fooled to make sure that the time has elapsed so where your 30-day backup, 30-day retention window hasn't been reduced down to 0? So this is what Rubrik will offer: is logical air gaps, an immutable file system, retention lock, and NTP protection, allowing you to make sure that you can recover for any type of cyber event. So let's just get a couple of slides to level set for discussion. So as I said, businesses are under attack. They're under attack every day. And what do we do here is we have to assume breach, basically. We have to assume that throughout all the multiple layers of your network, the perimeter, the network, the application, the endpoint, somebody's going to get in. Well, and if they get in, like I said, they're going to go after the data and the backup copies. And if they get your backup copies, what are you left with? And we're left with just paying the ransom. And from that, it gets very expensive and time-consuming, and most companies don't recover in a timely fashion to be able to establish, continued business. So this is what most companies have for their data, for their backup solutions. You have your virtualized infrastructure running on production servers. You may have deployed to systems, backup proxies, backup servers. They may be running Windows operating systems, maybe AD integrated, using standard storage protocols to a disk-based target. Right? This is what common systems are built for. They're deployed, but they haven't been built for an adversary behind the firewall. You just deployed your backup solution and secured it just for IT to make sure that normal users didn't stumble across it. But it wasn't built for someone attacking it. Using like standard protocols. It's using MFA. You have to have a secondary password to get into the system. And more importantly, can it defend itself? Because IT is stretched thin. For the weekends and holidays, you want to be able to take off and relax with your family. Do you want to be called at 3 o'clock on a Sunday or afternoon saying, hey, something's happened, and now you come in and there's nothing left? So this is where, when Rubrik was established, we changed the paradigm of how systems were deployed. Now, most companies, they're moving from data centers into different types of the cloud, right? Multiple cloud environments. This only complicates the issues. You have more backups. You have retention, frequency, replication, expiration to manage across multiple platforms and resources. This only exacerbates the problems. How do you ensure that everything is protected? And this is where we want to make, with Rubrik, we'll talk about today the difference between backup and recovery and cyber recovery. Back in the day, backup recovery was easy. Someone came running down the hall, got to your door, and said, I need to recover a file. The hardest thing you had to do at that point was like locate the file, right? But now, and then maybe you recovered the file. Maybe you had to recover a virtual machine. You went to that point in time, recover that virtual machine, or a database. You went to that point in time, recover the database. It was pretty simple. But with cyber recovery, you don't know what it is you need to restore. You need to ask yourself, okay, if I don't know what I need to restore, when did they get in? Right? How far do they get? What is the extent of damage they caused? And you have to piece all this together in a really bad time and then do the recovery. But what's the sensitive data in this, Was there sensitive data in scope? Was that sensitive data exfiltrated? Where was that sensitive data at? Right? And then if I go to recover something during a cyber event, how do I ensure that I'm not recovering the malware again to start reinfecting? So this is some of the things that we have to deal with today when it comes to cyber recovery. And speaking about the sensitive data, a lot of times you have to do reporting of a cyber event to external agencies like CCPA and GDPR. Those have fines associated with timing. So you can't spend a lot of time like researching this where you have to pay more fines. So this is something that we had, we didn't have to worry about with backup recovery. But there's actually one more. One more is boards, C-suites. They're constantly asking, right? Are we good? Are we protected? Right? A lot of these times they're getting questions from cyber insurance or from the stakeholders saying, hey, are we protected? Can we recover? Can you prove that we can recover? And the next question that the infrastructure teams and SecOps teams have been dealing with for a long time is, how long will it take? And usually from how long will it take is like, can I test it and show? Because during an event, you want to be able to determine, yes, this is the radius, blast radius. This is the data that was dealt with that was exfiltrated, and I can recover these systems in this amount of time based on my previous testing. So this is where we have introducing Ruby Security Cloud. So Ruby Security Cloud is built on 3 distinct pillars: a data resilience, data observability, and data remediation. And what those are: data resilience. That's a copy of your data, safeguarded so no one can get to it, modify it, or expire early. And I'll go into this a little more detail about how we do this. Data observability, right? That's the insights we can glean from your data, how it's changed over time. It's the metadata of the data we're protecting within your environment. We have today's versions, yesterday's versions, and previous versions. And with that, we can let the data tell a story. We can track data added, deleted, modified from those backups. And with that, we can introspect that data for sensitive data. We can tell if the system's been encrypted. And the data remediation. You can't have the first two. You need to have the last one also, data remediation. Right? This is not backup recovery. Backup recovery is simple. This is cyber recovery. We can take all that info and that timeline associated with the entire incident, right, and build that into data remediation. So now you know what systems need to be recovered, how they need to be recovered, and how long it will take. So let me walk you through how it works. Regardless of what type of data you have, whether the data is in the cloud, data center, SaaS, right, we protect all that data and give it an immutable air-gap copy. On top of that, we collect the metadata. We call that, the time series data. So the data over time of that data, virtual machines, file sets, physical systems, whatever it may be, databases, we collect that, how that data has changed over time. From there, we put in modern data protection. This is where Rubrik started in 2015. We were built on an architecture that was hardened, a hardened data vault, following a zero trust framework. We trust nothing. And over the past few years, we have accelerated in data security because of this. All that data protected by us gets encryption detection. In 2017, many years ago, before it was too popular, we had one of our early customers have an encryption event. Now, their backups were safe. They could restore. But the one thing they couldn't answer is, they didn't know what to restore. They knew they had a ransomware note. They had encrypted systems and a ransomware note. They had good backups, but they couldn't answer, what's my clean copy? So we built a solution that compares the diffs between backups and highlights what you need to recover. Along with that, sensitive data discovery. There's a lot of systems out there that you bring inside your infrastructure to monitor where sensitive data lies. But you have to enroll systems in that, put agents out, deploy things. We're doing sensitive data discovery on the backup data. So after every backup, we're scanning that backup for whatever defined policies you have Rubrik look for that sensitive data. So we can help with reporting to governing bodies like CCPA and GDPR. We can help remediate where sensitive data is by end users pushing it to different places. We introspect that data and surface all the PII and other data you need to effectively run your business. On top of that, we have threat hunting and quarantining. So again, during a cyber event, where we can have an answer what that blast radius is, we can tell you where the sensitive data was, but we can also tell you where indicators of compromise were. So we can look across that historical backup data. We scan the backup data, not the production data, and we can let you know that where that malware was landed at, when that malware existed on that server before it actually executed. And then we can allow you to quarantine that data so you can't recover that affected snapshot. We allow you to keep it so you can do some introspection on that snapshot for forensics later on, but we don't allow that common person to actually restore that data. So we can threat hunt, find the IOCs, and quarantine any bad data so you don't reinfect the systems. And risk assessment. We continuously monitor the deployment of all Rubrik's data vaults across all your environments to make sure that, are we good? Are they deployed correctly? Is MFA enabled correctly? Are all objects being protected? Is SLA compliant? Is the backup compliance being met? So we monitor that real time to make sure that your Rubrik deployment is in the best case possible, in the best footprint possible. And recovery testing. We allow you through our cyber recovery to test at any given time your application recovery, whether it's in-place recoveries or DR failover recoveries, to test it, report on it, and be assured that within no matter what happens, you can recover from any type of backup or cyber event. And that's Rubrik Security Cloud. So the benefits for this, hold on one second. So the guaranteed ability to recover in peacetime and wartime. We have 5,000 plus Rubrik customers. We have customers getting hit by ransomware 1 to 3 per week. And every one of those customers has been able to recover their data with Rubrik. We have a single system to protect your on-prem, cloud, and SaaS data. Doesn't matter where that data lies, we can protect it. You can test that backup data. You can test the cyber recovery at any given time. Makes it very simple. And if you want to automate this based on the API of the platform, you can also do that. We have practical data visibility, right? In a time of crisis, you want to be able to provide quick and concise answers. I don't know isn't something that management wants to hear. But yes, this is what was affected. These are the systems. These are the files. These are the folders. This is what I need to recover. This is how long it'll take. And inside the data that's been deleted, this is the sensitive data that was in there. That's huge. And consolidation and repurposing existing budget. Basically, the best part, we consolidate and repurpose existing spend. If you add up what you're doing around data protection, Rubrik generally will pay for itself. But don't take my, don't take my word for it. We have 5,000 plus customers across multiple verticals. Hundreds have dealt with a ransomware attack, and 100% of them have been able to recover their data with Rubrik. So this is something like I said, we have 1 to 3 Rubrik customers a week get hit by ransomware. With this, we came out with a ransomware warranty. Sorry, I'll skip the slide real quick. Let's go to the next one. There we go. So we came out with a $10 million ransomware recovery warranty. It's not that we're in the business for being able to pay the warranty, but we came out with this warranty because we built our data vault architecture is different. right? It's better than what has been out there in the industry for many years. And I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into why we're different and how we're different here. It's the Rubrik Data Vault. It's a bunker in the box, hard on Linux OS. It's vendor patched. There's no shell OS access. On top of that, we built out a mutable file system. The mutable file system has no way to modify the data. We don't run any third-party applications within that Rubrik Data Vault. We have end-to-end encryption. So we have zero trust framework. Even the Rubrik node, individual nodes of a Rubrik Data Vault do not trust themselves. We have TLS encryption between those nodes. So everything is encrypted, data in flight and data at rest. Always on built-in MFA. We find that most of our customers' Active Directory is compromised. So we build local accounts with MFA enabling those local accounts to make sure you can log in and operate the Rubrik cluster whether or not you have Active Directory support or not. External MFA and RBAC. So again, least privileges. So you can create RBAC roles of least privileges, just allowing the backup administrators or the data users to access the data they need to access. And then retention lock and NTP protection, as we talked about. We make sure that we mark those backup policies so they can't have early deletion or reduced frequencies, and the system can't be fooled into the date being, the NTP source being changed and the date being moved forward and started deleting backups. We use a monotonic clock to make sure that doesn't happen. And all of this, that logical air gap, immutable backups, encryption, always on MFA, retention lock, NTP protection. Again, make sure it's penetrable from inside or a ransomware attack to make sure it's immutable and you can recover. We also have a Rubrik ransomware response team. We call it RRT team. This is available to any Rubrik customer at any time. If any Rubrik customer thinks they have an event, they don't have to know, but they think something's gone on and they think there's a ransomware, they call this number. We have a global team that is very experienced. This is all they do. They assist Rubrik customers, and they work with your customer, your incident response teams to ensure that you can do a consistent custom recovery of any data that Rubrik's being protected. And we will stay with you as long as you need us during that event. So again, this is available to every Rubrik customer, regardless of the Rubrik system they have, how big or small, or what features they have. If you think you have an event, reach out to this team, and they will assist you during recovery during that time. We also have Rubrik Zero Labs. What Rubrik Zero Labs is trying to do is trying to stay one step ahead of the people that we are, the adversaries, to make sure that we know what's coming and say what's next. And this is becoming important because we're going to start with Rubrik Zero Labs being able to push out intelligence to the Rubrik Security Cloud across all our customers saying, we see these threats in the wild. Let's look for these threats in your backup data before they're even being propagated out there. So with that, I have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, Shane, thank you so much for that awesome presentation. That was such an interesting discussion. I know the audience was also really getting a lot of it. We got a lot of great questions. Before we jump into those, though, I'm just going to put this poll up on the screen for you all. And what we're looking for is what additional information you would like to get about the Rubrik solution. So Shane just gave us a lot of really great information. Tons of great information, and there's obviously a lot more to learn. And the best part about digging in with an organization is getting to figure out how it's going to work exactly for you and your needs. So if you click on this poll right here, this is a great way to get started, to let Rubrik know exactly how they can follow up with you. So you guys click on that poll, and Shane and I are going to dive into some of these questions. You ready?
Sure.
All right, let's do it, Shane. Also, Shane, I have to say, because one of the questions that we get a lot is how can I pitch this to my C-suite? And you did a great job of telling us what the C-suite was going to ask, that, are we good? Can you prove it? And how long is it going to take? And then answering those questions. And I know that the audience really appreciates that because that comes up quite a bit.
It does.
One of the questions, yeah, it's a big thing, right? You have to make an argument for these. One of the questions that we got right at the end here was when you were talking about the ransomware response team and you were saying this is available to everyone regardless. One of our audience members was wondering if they have to pay anything extra in order to utilize that team.
No, no. As long as you're a Rubrik customer under a support with Rubrik, that ransomware response team is available to anyone.
Okay,
So it's
amazing.
not a SKU. Yep.
Okay, okay. And I love that we stay on until you tell us to get off. That's great. All right, can Rubrik back up physical systems?
All day long, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Nice.
So physical Linux system, physical Windows system, we can protect them.
Perfect. Matt is wondering, what is the impact on performance of Rubrik backups encrypted?
On Rubrik so
yeah, I'm wondering if he means is there a performance impact?
No, I mean if we're scanning systems for encryption detection, there's no performance impact on the Rubrik system doing that. If we're scanning the backup data, there's no performance hit on the production data as well. So remember, all our encryption detection since the data discovery is being done on the backup copies, not the actual production systems.
Right, and you were mentioning the immutable file, and we did get a question here. When is the data Rubrik protects immutable? Can you dig into that a little bit more?
As soon as the backup job is completed for that backup, that workload where it's a virtual machine, let's say it takes 5 minutes to back up, once it lands on the Rubrik cluster, it is immutable at that time. We don't have to transfer it to another system or another area within the Rubrik cluster or another vault or something to get that immutability. So it's immutable on the first copy.
Okay, you are getting a lot. Everyone just immediately had a ton more questions for you. So the questions box is filling up, and I know that we are not going to get to these because we're going to have to leave it there. Shane, if you have a few minutes to stick around on live chat, that'd be amazing. We also are going to make sure that all of these questions get sent to the Rubrik team. So for those of you out there who have asked a question, and there's quite a few of you that we're not going to get to, please keep those questions coming in because Shane and Rubrik will be following up with you. Shane, before you leave us though, if somebody wants to get started and jump in with Rubrik, what do you recommend as step one?
Reach out to Rubrik.com, and we have a team reach out to you and talk about your use case. We do online discussions. We can do cloud-based hosted technical sessions. We can do actual POCs depending on the environment. So Rubrik.com.
Perfect. Nice and easy. All right. Well, Shane, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you.
Thank you.
All right, and for those of you out there that are looking to learn a little bit more right away, head on over to the handout section and make sure you grab the Rubrik handout. It's a white paper, Definitive Guide to Zero Trust Data Security. I love this. I've said this before, so if you've been on webinars with me, you know I'm a big fan of zero trust. I just find it a really interesting concept of approach to kind of dig into. This is a great read, so please do download this. Hold on to this white paper because you're going to want to read that after we wrap today. But we are going to keep moving things along here at the MegaCast because first, it is time to give away our very first prize of the day. So we're going to start with a Samsung S23, and then we will do a $300, nope, sorry, I'm going to reverse that. Let's do a $300 Amazon gift card, and then a Samsung S23. Ooh, switcheroo on you all. Just making sure you guys are awake. I'll remind you again that you do need to be live and present here with us at the MegaCast, and our very first winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Swapnil Malik of Massachusetts. Swapnil Malik of Massachusetts, congratulations on your $300 Amazon gift card. And our first winner of a Samsung S23 phone, color of your choice, is Sean Milstead of Oregon. Sean Milstead of Oregon, congratulations. Now, as always, we will be in touch about claiming those prizes after we wrap up the MegaCast today, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget, there's more chances to win. Plus, we have that Amazon gift card going to the best question asked from each one of our sessions. So keep those questions coming in. And folks, I know you are going to have a lot of questions for our next speaker because we are in for such an interesting conversation. Now, I have to let you all know, today's MegaCast is short and sweet. So the sad part is this is our last presentation of the day. But the excellent part is that we have quite the grand finale lined up for you. So we will be chatting with an absolutely fascinating human, a great way to wrap up this day. I'm so excited to introduce you all to our very last speaker, and that is Miroslav Klivaneski, Global Practice Leader, Analytics and AI at Pure Storage. How cool is that title? Miroslav, I cannot wait to hear more about you and Pure Storage, so I'm going to hand the mic right on over to you. Take it away.
Thanks, Jess. That's quite an intro. I'm looking forward to presenting and hope to live up to that amazing introduction. As Jess mentioned, my name is Miroslav Klavansky. I'm Global Practice Lead for Analytics and AI at Pure Storage. And today I want to talk about modern data pipelines and, how to get faster time to insights. And, why do people care? Well, analytics, and especially analytic maturity, is a big competitive edge. When we look at the research that's out there, what we see is that companies that have a high level of analytic maturity have 2.5 times higher customer satisfaction than their peers that don't use analytics as effectively. They have 350% higher operational excellence than their peers that don't use analytics as a competitive edge, and their pace of innovation is 46% higher. So they're able to improve their business, improve the pace at which they innovate and deliver in the market 46% faster than their less analytically mature peers. The way that this can show up is many, many different ways. You're out there, you're experiencing the modern world, and you see analytics all around you. So if you're using Netflix or whatever your streaming service of choice, you're seeing recommendations of what to watch next, what you might like based on whatever media you're browsing. Netflix piloted this capability, but this is driven by machine learning and analytics. And, if you look at just Netflix, they're generating 80% of their recommendations using machine learning. And most of the views that people have out there are based on analytics and machine-driven recommendations. Airbnb increased their booking conversion rate. So the people that actually chose to pay money by increasing the likelihood that the host would accept the bid using machine learning and analytics. UPS saves hundreds of millions of dollars and hundreds of millions of driving miles. Just imagine what that does to the environment to not have those miles driven using their route optimization system, again, based on analytics, based on demand forecasting. This is how they've improved their business. BP reduces methane emissions and increases production. Visa earned $3 billion in revenue just by selling aggregated data and analytics services to their customers and different market users. So analytics and analytic maturity can turn into significant competitive edge and significant differentiation and ROI out there, and we're seeing it every day. One framework that's useful for thinking about emerging data architectures, modern analytics, is to look at it as, basically being part of two big buckets. One is analytic systems, the other one is operational systems. So for analytic systems, they're really where you go to make smart data-driven decisions. Having a data-driven business, one that is aware of, how things are operating internally and where to go next is critical. That's part of how you get that competitive edge. And analytic systems help you analyze, the huge amount of data coming in around your business's operations and everything else, and drive those smart data-driven decisions. On the other hand, there's the operational systems. So these are the systems that are, making the business and organization run. They're the systems and applications that are critical for building the product that you deliver to customers, handling the logistics of, stocking and distributing those products, offering services, if this is a more service-driven business, supporting customers, being able to understand and, understand demand in the market and, handle orders. All of that are part of the operational systems. So when you take those two big buckets and drive them toward the underlying, systems and platforms that are making this work, you tend to see them map to three different buckets. One is modern business intelligence. So this is the modern evolution of kind of more traditional business intelligence systems where, you're taking data from your operational systems, which are OLTP, loading them into your data warehouses, which is OLAP. And over time, this has matured. It's gotten more complex. There's been an introduction to more analytics rather than just querying. There's been an introduction of machine learning, of more real-time access. So that's part of the modern business intelligence phase. The next is the multimodal data processing. So this is, where the evolution of data warehousing has moved into data lakes, lake houses, systems where there is a mix of structured and unstructured data that gets processed, real-time data mixed in, being able to do things in a more kind of planned and scheduled way, and also kind of a real-time reactive event-driven way. So that fits in that multimodal data processing bucket. And then we have our AI and machine learning bucket. So this is a hot new area. It's still maturing. It's still kind of changing and evolving very rapidly. But AI and machine learning right now is starting to feed these operational systems and bring artificial intelligence to the services and products that are being delivered today. So, just keep this framework in mind as you consider what is out there and the possibilities. The opportunity that those systems give you is to get value from all of your data. Like if you think in terms of your organization and the data that's out there, there's likely, your traditional operational databases, which are almost always relational, although there's other database types out there as well. There's lots of log and event data out there. Maybe that's clickstream from your website or your app. Maybe it's instrumentation and telemetry from the various devices on the factory floor or the IoT devices that your company distributes. Maybe it's, just coming from all sorts of telemetry that's built into, the cameras or whatever else is distributed. But that data tends to be, structured in the relational database case or unstructured when you're talking about things like audio recordings that might come from a customer support line. Or it might be semi-structured where you have some combination of free-form text that is part of a more structured data format that gets recorded. So that's one flavor of data. Then when it comes to interacting with that data and how you work with it, there tends to be this mix of batch and real-time data, where in a lot of traditional applications that tends to be batch-oriented, where you sort of collect up all the data that comes in, and then once an hour it gets loaded into the database, and then maybe 3 hours later all the data that's accumulated gets analyzed and some dashboard is updated. Or you have streaming where the data gets loaded in as it arrives, it's analyzed, any sort of updates to dashboards or reports or changes to what's displayed on a website or in an app is happening in pretty much real time. So those tend to be kind of two big flavors of those applications. And then, of course, there's file and object data. There are raw devices like LUNs and disks that get formatted with file systems pretty much almost always. And they're just different data profiles. So, keep that in mind in terms of the data in your organization. all that data is processed and fed into a data pipeline. And that data pipeline tends to have, fairly well-defined stages that have different needs and different patterns in terms of how they use data. So, you almost always have lots of data sources. You're ingesting data from those data sources. And once that data is ingested, there's a phase where it is, loaded into your applications or stored somewhere. There's often some transformation and cleaning involved. And once the data is in the data store, then there's often some sort of exploration to make sure that the data quality is high, maybe to come up with different ways to gain insight from that data, making sure that all the assumptions around how the data works and what's out there hasn't changed since the last time. So this exploration phase tends to be done interactively, and it has its own kind of requirements. And then, that data application tends to get deployed, and it's either, batch or streaming. If you're talking about AI, then in this phase, there's often it's about model training, taking new data and training your model with the data that you've just brought in and making sure that model is refined and trained on the latest data. And then if you're talking about deployment, this is inference in the AI case or real-time and streaming applications in kind of more traditional analytics. But the thing to keep in mind is there's always a data pipeline. It has different stages, and those stages have different requirements. So it's very common to implement that data pipeline and those different stages and requirements using different silos for your data aligned to the different applications that are in play in that data pipeline. So, it's very common that you have data warehouses, data lakes, some sort of cloud analytics, and often some AI. Commonly, these have their own silos, and of course, there's like a backup system where you back up and protect your data and process it as well. You can protect it from ransomware, for example, like in the Rubric case in our previous presentation. But one of the challenges with those data silos is, well, there's complexity, there's efficiency, there's management overhead, and there's a lot of value in breaking down those data silos and being able to share data. So when you can unify your data platforms and consolidate all of those different pipeline stages and requirements on a single platform and environment, you get to have a lot of those advantages that are out of reach when working in a data silo environment. But there's a number of challenges to consolidating those different data silos. One is just lack of agility and scalability. When you're building something big, you have to do it the right way in order not to make it kind of rigid and fragile. Performance bottlenecks, all of those different data characteristics have different performance requirements, and often it's challenging to have a single platform that can handle all of those different pieces. Management complexity is a factor, especially if you're trying to manage petabytes worth of data. Having infrastructure that's not necessarily optimized for any one of those stages, if you don't do it right, then there's a lot of inefficiency that comes in. And then, of course, there's limitations in terms of productivity, and if it's not done the right way, then it gets expensive. So, how Pure approaches this is to share data on one integrated infrastructure. And to do that, we have a number of different platforms, like hardware platforms, that each have a very broad range of applications and workload characteristics that they handle well. So on the one hand, there's FlashArray, that is a super low latency block and file platform. It's built for traditional applications, traditional platforms like VMware and bare metal, and it's a really great low latency system for a broad range of applications that need low latency and are built in a scale-up architecture. And then we have FlashBlade, which is a scale-out architecture, and it's built for high-performance, high-scale file and object data. And that scales out, which is a great match for scale-out applications that need very high throughput because all their nodes are accessing the storage at the same time. So there's a small number of platforms. They each have a very broad range, so it's almost like if you compare it to cars or motorcycles, where you can have a wide band of speeds that each gear can support. So in that same way, each platform can support a very wide band of application performance requirements. But one of the things that we're seeing more and more, and is becoming an important part of the analytics landscape, is Kubernetes. And for containerized applications running in a Kubernetes environment, we have Portworx. And Portworx creates this awesome storage abstraction layer that can take those different hardware platforms, or even kind of regular direct attached disk, and create a storage abstraction layer that delivers storage classes and different service levels that your application can call on. And this lets you just deliver service levels in your code in very simple definitions for your Kubernetes services and deployments. And thanks to Portworx, your application becomes very portable between on-prem and the cloud. You get to do a lot of data protection for those applications in a cloud-native, Kubernetes native way, and abstract that storage so that you can focus on your application and the analytic services that you want to offer, rather than spending a lot of time managing infrastructure. And of course, each of the underlying platforms are easy to manage as well. With that as the foundation, Pure lets you power your analytics and bring competitive advantage. We have a broad range of partners that we work with around log analytics for infrastructure, for your applications like clickstream analytics, security, and log handling, modern data lakes and data warehouses that can really give you insights into your businesses and decision-making, and implement some real-time, powerful analytics that combines batch and streaming, and then streaming analytic platforms like Spark, Kafka, and Confluent that have the latest low latency real-time solutions out there. All of that comes together to accelerate business outcomes, and we have a broad range of strategic partners and a broad range of happy customers that have seen their investment and their work pay off in terms of things like 24 times faster data analysis for drug discovery that MacArthur Labs saw, or infrastructure teams that save tens of thousands of hours per year on their log analytics pipeline at ServiceNow. For example, 7 times faster results for genetics AI research. So we have lots of customers, lots of great results, lots of information that's out there in terms of what is available. We have pointers in the handouts and questions area. And, just as a very quick overview of the platforms that Pure Storage offers, we have FlashArray//X for performance optimized, low latency scale up, FlashArray//XL, performance at scale, for your most critical applications and lowest latency and, highest performance demands, FlashArray//C, that's capacity optimized, scale out or scale up architecture, and then, kind of the bread and butter of our analytics in the past have been FlashBlade//S, which is built for scale out, and it's performance optimized with file and object. More and more applications are now using object storage for their persistent storage needs, and FlashBlade offers that. And then we recently introduced FlashBlade E that is capacity and price optimized. And, that is a great archive data repository. It's awesome for the cold and frozen tiers for your applications. So, that is part of the underlying platforms that are available to deliver on the storage classes and service levels that you need. So with that, let me wrap up and kind of pause here for Q&A.
I like it. Let's do it. Miroslav, thank you so much. That was such an interesting presentation. I have to say, as a motorcycle rider, I appreciated the motorcycle reference. I was like, yes, the many bands of speeds. Yeah, I got that. It clicked. No, it was a great presentation, and you definitely lived up to the grand finale of it all. I see that you've got some QR codes for us. I'm going to leave those up for just a second longer, and then what I'll do momentarily here is move over to our poll question for you all. What that poll is going to be, you should know it by now, but I'll just remind you, what we're going to ask you is what additional information you would like to get about Pure Storage, about the Pure Storage solution. So obviously, just kind of brushing the surface of the information iceberg here, and there's lots more to dig into. So there's going to be questions like, do you want white paper, a demo, and things like that. And this is a great way to make sure that you get the follow-up that you're looking for from Pure Storage without having to do anything. You just click on the poll and then they send it right to you. So last chance to get these QR codes, and maybe I'll flash them right at the end before we give away some prizes again. So stay tuned for that. But grab those QR codes, grab them, going, and gone. Okay, now that poll question's up there, so make sure you click on that poll. While you're doing that, Miroslav and I are going to do some Q&A. You ready?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to start with this one here. What is the role of object storage in data pipelines?
Thanks, Jess. That's a great question. I mentioned it a little bit in the end of my presentation, but traditionally analytics has been done with file data. So people, would collect the data in terms of files and folders and hierarchies, and then that data would get loaded into databases, for some other analytics. Over the last, I'd say 5+ years, what we've seen is more and more analytic applications moving to object storage. And, we have our friends in the cloud to thank for that. A lot of the cloud applications where analytics often starts use object storage because that's sort of the low-cost native way of storing your data persistently out in the clouds. So as the applications adapt to object storage, more and more need for object storage shows up on-prem. And that's one of the places where Pure FlashBlade can make a big difference, because we provide very scalable, high-performance object storage that is super easy to manage. It's an appliance. It does load balancing and scale out. But that's really the role that we're seeing in object storage. It ends up being a persistent storage mechanism that applications are using to build their data stores. And a very common pattern that we're seeing with modern analytics is an object-based data store for persistence. And then the different nodes in this scale-out analytic application essentially using their local disk as a cache to bring in stuff from the object store, store it in the cache for the most recently used data, that doesn't fit into memory. So that's what we're seeing with object storage, and we expect that to just keep growing and maybe even accelerating in terms of adoption.
That's a neat trend. I'll be watching for that. I do want to tell you that we got a couple of shout outs from the audience here. Dustin wants you to know that your devices have the coolest faceplates. And Eric gave you a big shout out, says he's been a customer and is very happy with Pure. So that's always exciting to see. I'm going to speak at another question here. I like this. What's the right balance between consolidating on a single platform and having different platforms for a broader range of SLAs?
Oh, thanks. Let me go back to that kind of gear band analogy. I think it's really about like, when do you when do you shift gears? Like if you have a platform that can support a very broad range of needs, then you can kind of keep it in that one gear for a very long time in terms of your applications. What we tend to see is that there's a class of applications that needs low latency, and that application is often built in a scale-up way where, essentially you have a small number of nodes or servers that need access to that storage. They need that access to be low latency, and those servers are more or less independent of each other. And for those types of applications, flash array like X or XL or sometimes C is a great platform that supports a very broad range of speeds and sizes. And then there's other applications that are built scale out. So you can have, a handful of nodes, sometimes going all the way up to hundreds of nodes that are all working on the same application and problem. And in those environments and architectures, the nodes get busy at the same time. So you could have a burst of activity where you have 100 nodes all going out to storage at the same time. And for those kinds of architectures, you need a scale-out architecture, and that's where FlashBlade comes in. So FlashBlade is sort of the platform for scale-out and high throughput. When you have both of those in your infrastructure, now you can support pretty much all the applications with just two different flavors of platforms. If you put FlashArray C and FlashBlade E into the picture, now you have large cost-optimized archives that are able to handle your kind of less frequently utilized data in a very cost-effective way. And, finally, layering Portworx on top lets you abstract that all away and present your infrastructure as code so that your applications can consume storage levels, like storage level agreements and storage classes, instead of having to worry about specifically which platform to put the data. So that's how I would say there's that balance between, having a small number of systems in your infrastructure to manage and, handle, and the service levels and storage classes that your applications actually care about. Cool.
Miroslav, great answer. Yes, that did. Yeah, you actually hit a few other questions that had come in, so that was great. We definitely are not getting to all of the questions today. We got some really, really great questions coming in from our audience. And what we're going to do, Miroslav, since we're about to wrap up the MegaCast, is I'm going to send them all on to your team. So you will have a chance to respond to all of them and make sure that everybody gets answers back. So for all of you out there that still have some burning questions in mind, get them in. We will make sure that they get to the Pure Storage team, so you will get some answers back. Miroslav, thank you so much. Before you take off, though, what I'll do is so last chance to click on the poll, everybody. Last chance to click on the poll. Okay, I'm going to go back to those QR codes. And my question for you is, is this the best way to get started? What do you recommend as the best way to jump in and get started with Pure Storage?
Well, we have a ton of resources online. Those QR codes get you to some, valuable information around analytics, and, like the one on the left is around consolidation and, how to consolidate in a smart way. And then the one on the right is really just kind of a nice brief that summarizes a lot of our analytics solutions. So probably the one on the right is an easy way to get started. If you want more technical depth, check out the QR code on the left. And then, of course, just go to our website. We have lots of information out there. We have lots of friendly people out there that are excited to talk to customers. So just reach out if you're not a Pure customer today. Just get a hold of one of us. As someone mentioned, Pure is a great company to do business with. We have one of the highest NPS scores in the industry. Definitely in this area. In storage. So, one of the reasons Pure is successful is customers like doing business with us.
It's funny how often, I mean, that's such an obvious key to business success, and yet sometimes we forget about that, and it says quite a bit that people do really enjoy talking to you, and I really enjoy talking to you always. You have such a great team. I can definitely attest to that. Miroslav, thank you so much for being here with us today, for this incredible chat, for sticking around for some Q&A. I know we went a bit long, so I appreciate you staying with us to get through some of those questions. As I said, we'll get the rest on over to you, and it's just been a lot of fun talking to you today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jess. Always great talking with you as well.
All right, and to all of you out there who have scanned those QR codes and now, again, clicked on the poll, we're still getting lots of great shout-outs. I love this. You know, this is a really cool thing to see folks out there who are saying that they've had experiences with a specific vendor. You know, we always want to hear that. And in this case, John saying that has worked with Pure Storage and says that it's been great to work with them. So that's really cool to see. You know, we need those use cases and shout-outs from our peers, right? So appreciate the high fives coming in, and appreciate those of you who clicked on the poll. I'm also going to suggest that you click on the handouts tab. Make sure that you've got the Pure Storage. Again, it's a solution brief on data analytics and AI solutions. So obviously this is a great follow-up to the conversation that we just had here today. So be sure that you've got that handout. Be sure you've got both the handouts from our session today, and kind of have those set aside for after we wrap, because you're just not going to retain everything that you've heard today. So make sure you've got those handouts ready for you. All right, well, we'll leave that poll up another second here, and I'm going to go ahead and give away our last prizes. So we've got those Samsung Galaxy. Now I'll remind you again, you do get to choose the color. I'm very excited about that. I think that's an important thing here. So I hope that you're already leafing through the catalog and choosing your color. But let's go ahead and give away that Samsung. So, and we're going to do a gift card, and that's a $300 Amazon gift card. So the Amazon gift card going to Andrew Yaksik of Massachusetts, and a Samsung going to Russell Stone of Texas, and to Galen Tom of California. That's Russell Stone of Texas and Galen Tom of California. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read that full prize list for you again, because I know everyone always wants a little bit of a repeat. So let's go through this. We have a gift card going to Andrew Yaksik of Massachusetts. Oh, where am I starting? Hang on. Stay with me, guys. Boy, I have Friday brain already, and it's Thursday. Gift card going to Swapnil Malik of Massachusetts. Samsung going to Sean Milstead of Oregon. A gift card going to Andrew Yaksik of Massachusetts. And then a Samsung going to Russell Stone of Texas and Galen Tom of California. All right, I made it through. I can click into my Friday mode now. I don't know if you guys are feeling that way. It's feeling like a Friday sort of Thursday. All right, well, congratulations to our winners. As always, we will follow up with you after we wrap. Stay tuned for that best question gift card coming at you. We'll be looking at all the questions asked after we wrap up. And that's going to, thanks. Adam says, take my time. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Appreciate that. For all of you out there that are thinking to yourself, boy, this is a fun time, and I'd like to come hang out with Jess, with Scott, with Keith, we would love to hang out with you as well. So shoot us an email at connect@actualtechmedia.com if you're interested in presenting at a summit, an EcoCast, a MegaCast, a webinar, panelcast, democast, you name it. We want to talk to you. So shoot us an email, and let's get that conversation rolling. All right, well, speaking of rolling, we are rolling out into our wrap-up here. How's that for a segue? So with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank all of our speakers here with us today, or both of our speakers here with us today, from Rubrik and from Pure Storage, for making this MegaCast possible. On that note, a very special thank you to all of you for attending, for asking some great questions today. Man, we got just a pile of awesome questions coming in, which is so exciting to see, because it really does bring up the energy of the conversation. And of course, with data storage, data movement, data optimization, you know, it's so important to be thinking about the impact that that can have on your organization. We all know, we hear this all the time. I saw someone post early on and made the comment, you know, is data the new oil? So data is really important, and it has the opportunity to grow your organization. It has the opportunity to help you meet those next level goals that you have in mind for your team and for your business. But in order to meet those big goals, you have to get the most out of your data, and that starts by, you know, getting these effective tools and that are going to enable and empower you to use that data, to not just collect it, but to store it properly, to protect it, to optimize it and get the most out of it. So that's why these conversations are really exciting. That's why these conversations are so interesting. And it really does start with the conversations that you're having amongst each other. So, it's great to see those conversations happening out there, sharing some shout outs, sharing your thoughts, sharing your ideas, and asking those questions. So that's why when I say thank you to all of you, I genuinely mean that. And I would like to invite you all to come back and join us tomorrow. That's Friday, That's tomorrow? Oh my gosh, how is it May 19th already tomorrow? Friday, May 19th, tomorrow, for those of you keeping track at home, we're going to be talking about understanding data fabric versus data mesh. How cool is that? Technology and business drivers. So come chat with us tomorrow, Friday, May 19th, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific for an expert series on understanding data fabric versus data mesh, technology and business drivers. Adam says he's in. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. We'll see you there tomorrow. And I hope that we'll see more of you there tomorrow as well. But if it's on a future MegaCast, a future EcoCast, a webinar, whenever I get to chat with you next, I will very much be looking forward to it. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.